hangout here of this Big Ten, going through the book with Scotty Gibbons. Scotty, you're right there on the other line. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Good to be with you.
Awesome. Well, it's crazy to think, Scotty, that this is our conclusion. We've done, this is a 10th month journeying through the Big Ten, and it's just been really an incredible each time just gold that we're able to gain from this, and then the discussion. It's really given us a context for curriculum across the state as we were meeting in small groups, different sections. But really the purpose behind so much of this is just the community that's taking place, and just understanding that our greatest resource is each other, and knowing that we're better together. And so that's been really cool to see some of this take place. And I was telling Scotty a little earlier as we were just talking about this being the final conclusion of it. I was in some presbyter meetings this week, which is basically our leadership across the state. We have pastors who are set in place to kind of represent a section. And in those meetings, we're talking about kind of vision for next steps across the state from our superintendent. And as he's basically casting vision, he's talking about really the strategy for pastoral care as we venture into the future. And he's saying that really we're going to begin with a lot of the model that we're doing with the youth ministries. And so basically the concept of meeting together within sections and basically doing community together. It's going to start with our executive presbyters, who are going to meet in small groups with their presbyters, and then the presbyters, basically those leadership and basically a representative of the section, they're going to meet together with ministers in their area and kind of break it down to where we're really doing community. And I guess that culture that's taking place, I just want to affirm that in us together as youth ministries. How cool is it that we're seeing it, that vision fulfilled already, just in what's happening from the standpoint of our youth pastors, and now to see just across the state that is picking up traction. So really, if you want to go back and look at some of these, this is the last chapter that we're going through, but we've hit on chapter 1, it was leadership. We've hit speaking, pastoral care, campus ministry, follow-up, discipleship, small groups, planning events, and budget and youth leader volunteers. So really, this last chapter is the conclusion of this. But if you want, on the same page you're viewing live right now on our azag.org, and you're on the youth page now, but if you scroll down and you look, we have videos recorded from every single one of these chapters. So if you've yet to catch up and you're wondering how do I kind of look back on those, we have that available for you. We just want to resource you guys, but again, the intention is that we're doing community together. So I know we have youth pastors around the state right now meeting in sections. There's others who are going to be meeting at a later time, and so they're going to be doing this recorded. But I just want to jump really right into it today on the subject of youth leader volunteers. And Scotty, this was a great chapter to conclude. But really, there's so many nuggets. If you're reading through here, if you haven't yet read this chapter, make sure you guys get the book and read this chapter, because it's really, self-explanatory in a lot of ways. Really a quick access guide to kind of reminders, things that we should know when it comes to recruiting leaders. But we have some specific questions that were sent in, and so I want to kind of begin with that. But Scotty, if you could, just the first question that we had on this chapter is about vision, and basically, how important is vision in developing a leadership team. And so if you could kind of, just begin on that, just talk about, the purpose of vision when recruiting leaders, and how important is that for volunteer leaders?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Vision is so critically important, because when you think about building a team, when you think about inviting people to come alongside and to join you in the journey, without vision, you're asking them to walk blindly. You're asking them to sign up for something that they don't even know what it is, what the win is, or they don't understand what it is that you're asking them to do. There's nothing inspirational or motivational about it, because they can't even see what the end product could be or what it would be that we'd be celebrating. So without vision, really, your attempt to even build or recruit a team is dead in the water before you would even start. I would say there are a lot of advantages to having vision, but one of the greatest, and one that comes to my mind, would be the ability for a team to gather around a common cause, And I didn't share a lot of stories in the Big Ten book because it was meant to be that quick reference guide. But one of my earliest ministry stories came out of just the attempt to build a team, to work with the team that we had, and learning the importance of having a vision that everybody rallied around. And so when I went on my first vacation as a youth pastor, before that, I had different ones trying to speak into the vision, trying to offer a vision for the youth ministry because I wasn't doing an effective job of communicating one and bringing people around it. So different people were saying, what if we did this? What if we did our services like that? What if we did our calendar like this? And I was intimidated. I was insecure about that, and I didn't even know what to say or how to respond. So I was making some people mad, some people happy, and trying to keep it between the ditches. But when I went on vacation, what they decided to do is they decided to change the youth ministry and do it the way it should be done while I was gone. So I didn't know that they were going to do that. But when I came back, it was just different. I was like, what's going on? They're like, oh, yeah, we thought it'd be cool to start a worship team. And so we did. And, we thought it'd be cool to do this. So we did. And I remember thinking, man, this is crazy. But when they wanted to talk to me about it, they invited me over to a house. Like one of the guys said, hey, we're going to get together as leaders and have a cookout. You ought to come over. And so I did. But then when I got there, I realized that really it was more of they wanted to confront me and correct and deal with everything that was going wrong. You know what? Honestly, at that stage of the game, I probably needed to be rebuked, probably needed to be fired. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't have some things to say. What I'm pointing out is that in an absence of vision, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to rally a team around the common cause that you feel like God's touched your heart with. So getting that vision begins with you getting the vision in the heart of your lead pastor for the vision of the house, knowing that your youth ministry is there and exists to carry out the mission of the church. It's not the other way around. So your vision can't compete with the vision of the house. But when it's there to facilitate that, to complement that, and then you have to be able to articulate that in terms of the application and context of student ministry. And when you're able to do that, you're now ready to take the next steps in terms of recruiting and building a team. But you've got to step back and say, what has God called us to do as a church, as directed by my leadership? How will that look expressed in student ministry? And how can I articulate that in a way to where people can get it and understand it and be inspired by it?
That's so good. And it really reminds me, too, when you talk about vision, we hit a lot on that subject on that first chapter when we're talking about your lead pastor and how to best serve your pastor, serve that vision, to not conflict with it. And that's huge. But one of the quotes you have in this chapter, Scotty, and I love it, is people want to be part of something big. Something that matters. Great leaders respond to great causes. Yeah. And you just think about, if you can, concise, even like, you hear businesses have an elevator pitch or they have, their mission statement. I think that's a good practice to think through in the great picture and context of our church and our lead pastor's vision of the church. How do we really script out our mission statement, why we exist as a youth ministry. And that may really help you as well in recruiting leaders, because, you say an elevator pitch, it's, maybe 30 seconds to, in an elevator, basically, how can you basically describe that? But it's probably good practice, whether that's at a parent picking up their student from youth group and you only have that 30 seconds before they leave or a minute, but you see a potential in that parent to, they have a heart for youth ministry. Well, how do you convey why we exist? And I think it's a good practice to be able to know that, because that speaks to vision and people want to rally behind a cause. They want to be a part of something big. So, so good on that first question. And the second question we have, Scotty, is what warning signs do you look for in people? And I think what they're probably referring to in this question is that, what maybe red flags when you're recruiting leaders do you look for? You talk quite a bit about in this chapter to recruit great leaders to join your team. Some of the points you have is constantly recruit, choose character over charisma, and provide easy on ramps and off ramps for leaders. There's a couple others you kind of hit on when looking for potential leaders, but when you're recruiting someone, because we have youth pastors across the state who are looking for great leaders, but what are some things maybe in your years of experience and some things that you've seen as to like what warning signs you look for in the process of recruiting?
Yeah, very good. If their parole officer comes with them to the interview, don't let them be a leader. Don't let them be a leader. That's one of the first red flags.
That's
You know
a
what,
big
Griffin?
warning sign.
I think that there are a lot of things that just as you're praying, as you're discerning and interacting with people, that will really spark in your heart, man, this person has a love for God. They have a love for students. They have a willingness to serve. You know, they have a desire to be a team player. They're not here to come and just do their thing. It's not, hey, I've got a ministry idea, and so you as a youth pastor need to accommodate this or make room for it. I think that there are a lot of attributes that we look for. I'd say one of the biggest red flags, in my opinion, would be when someone, you can just quickly discern that they lack a teachable spirit. That would be one of the biggest red flags that I would throw out there. When they do not have a teachable spirit, and man, I saw it at every season, every stage of ministry. There are just those who come in and they have an agenda. Or they come in, they feel like they have it all figured out, or they come in and they have all of their own opinions or whatever. It will make it very difficult. I don't care how significant your vision or how pithy or fancy your vision statement be. If they come in and I'm willing to step into the vision that God's placed in your heart. It doesn't matter if they do have charisma. It doesn't matter if they're a Pied Piper. I don't care if they're just like a student magnet. I would not let them on the team. Because what you have to know is every single leader that you allow to join your team, they will either raise or lower the overall leadership IQ of your team, the spiritual temperature of your team. And so what you want to do is, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be at the same place in their journey. So man, I'm okay if you're a single college student. I'm okay if you're a young married couple. I'm okay if you're a parent. I'm okay if you're a grandparent. I'm okay if you're into athletics. I'm okay if you're into poetry. I'm okay. All of those things are fine. But when a person steps into the dynamic and right out of the way, they don't have a teachable spirit, it will begin to impact the attitude and the hearts of everyone else on the team. So you've really got to guard that team dynamic. You've got to guard that unity. You've got to guard that direction of the ministry. So, Griffin, one of the just practical ways that you can guard against those who would come in and disrupt that unity would just be, do they have a teachable spirit? Are they willing to serve? So I was just with a pastor a few weeks ago who actually I was there at his church, but his youth pastor told me the story and said, oh, my pastor was telling me about when he came and he was a volunteer leader at Real Life. He came in and wanted to serve or wanted to be a part of the team. And so you told him, great, we need somebody to stack chairs, so go stack chairs. And so he did that for a little while and came back and said, hey, I'd really like to teach a class or something. And my response was, man, you're doing a great job stacking the chairs. I want you to stay stacking the chairs. And then apparently he came back like a third time or something. And was like, hey, I want to lead this ministry. And I said, yeah, I really just want you to stack the chairs for right now. I didn't remember that story, by the way, but I've heard that repeatedly. And so what I look back on and realize is that there were certain times that I just sensed this person has agenda other than coming in with a towel to wash feet. And so what I say is, before I put them in a place of significant influence, I give them a chance just to work through that a little bit and to do a gut check and see what their motive is really about. But watch for a servant's heart, watch for a teachable spirit. Are they more in love with themselves, or are they more in love with God? Do they want to come in and make a difference in the life of the student, or are they looking for a platform to show how cool they are? Some of those things will just safeguard you from guys who could come in and disrupt the vision that God's placed in your heart.
Yeah, no, that's it's huge to think through those characteristics there. And if you're listening to this, please take note of this. This is so huge, Scotty, what you just said there. And if we can understand, those are the foundation, those are the building blocks. You can work with something like that. You know, you can teach a teachable spirit, but there's no way you're going to be able to cast vision and to be able to see someone follow that vision if they're not coming in, to be taught or to learn and to grow. And so I think those are some really important things. Make sure you're taking note of it. I know we have some great systems in place that some of our youth pastors have, a list of things, and so this is maybe already be on your list, but it's a good reminder for that. But if you haven't thought through that, or maybe you're on the fence right now, maybe a leader, you're wanting to come to camp, or you're a leader that you're trying to recruit for the summer, make sure they have a teachable spirit. That's so huge. I remember actually our pastor out in Missouri, John Lindell, when I had I learned this thing. I really took note of it, because at first I didn't understand it, but he was always very cautious to accept anyone's invitation when they say, hey, and they volunteer self for something, and they volunteer themselves to help in a way. There's definitely a difference between someone coming and volunteering their self and then someone to volunteer their service. And you can just see it in the difference of their tone. You can see it in the difference of their willingness to be a part of something. Like, are they really volunteering their service in this? Are they really looking to meet a need, or are they looking to find a place and to find a position in something? And I think good leaders will pray for that kind of discernment and wisdom, and really those red flags, so to say. But I always thought that was interesting when I was thinking, man, a church that runs on so many volunteers, James River, great church, Pastor John, like, why would you say that? That you'd be cautious to see someone who is really willing to volunteer themselves for something. But he's like, there's a difference between volunteering self and volunteering service. And I was like, that's huge. Which really, it brings us in the next question, kind of piggybacks on this, Scotty, but how many times should you meet with the leader before giving them permission to lead? And I remember there was certain systems that we had in place even while I was serving under you in youth ministry in Missouri at James River. But there was, we had a basics manual, some training that you kind of went through, basically some systematic ways to say you're going to kind of go through the course or the boot camp of learning the experience before you really get into being a title of a leader. I think sometimes we're really quick to claim someone as a leader. They may show up, and just because they're an adult, oh, you must be a leader. But what maybe systems, like how many times should you meet? And maybe it isn't a specific amount of time. You mentioned some big things like one of the quotes in here, I'll just say this before you hit this, but something you've already said is spend time getting to know the heart of a potential leader before officially bringing them on the team. The better you know them, the better chance you'll have of placing them in the right role where they can have the greatest impact. And so maybe for some that timeline looks a little bit different in order to really get to know them, get to know their gift sets. But do you have kind of some advice in how many times maybe you should meet with someone, or what that system should look like in order to really officially call someone a leader?
Yeah. I do. I think that I would start by saying it really depends on what the role would be, because to the degree that someone's going to be a leader, like, for example, our system was you could be a youth worker versus a youth leader, and a youth worker would just be someone who maybe is interested in serving in the cafe, or someone who's willing to be a bus driver for us for trips, or someone who's willing to come and grill hamburgers for us at a canoe trip, or something like that. Those would be people who would be a part of our team, but they were not the people who would be teaching a class, leading a Bible study, overseeing a small group, running areas of ministry like that. So I think that your system needs to be built in such a way to where it accommodates whatever the person's role would be. So for everyone, there would be an orientation. So for everyone, there has to be a step one. So during that orientation, that's where you would share things like that vision. You say, here's who we are, here's where we're going, here's how we plan to get there, and we can only see these things accomplished by the help of the Lord, working through great leaders like yourself, who will come along and come together, rally around this cause. So I think in that orientation, those are the kinds of things that you're covering. And then at that point, you would give them the options and the different ways that they could be involved, so that from a gift set standpoint, from a time standpoint, interest level, all of those different things, they could look at it and go, okay, I'm looking at serving in this capacity. So if they go down one certain path, it could be as easy as just making sure you have your background checks done. It could be just a one-on-one interview in case that orientation first is like in a group setting. I'm assuming, you know, off this illustration I'm using, that's a group setting. But then a one-on-one with them to do precisely the quote that you read a minute ago, Griffin, on get to know their heart. Like, why do they want to be a part of the student ministry? What caused them to step? What's God placed in their heart to do by way of service? And so I think that one-on-one meeting gives you a chance to do that. But if they're going to be, like in our case, a youth worker, man, if they've cleared their background check, they've bought into the vision, they're willing to come alongside and serve in the role that you asked them to do, I believe in making it as easy for them as possible to join the team in that sense, assuming those non-negotiables are in place, right? Make it as easy as possible for them to get involved. When it comes to small group leader, leading a class, overseeing some specific area of ministry, I would move very, very slowly. So again, you referenced that just a moment ago, like don't move hastily through that process. That could look like another 2 or 3 interviews or meetings or just heart-to-heart chats that you're getting to know. And I would say give them low risk, easy win opportunities so that it's a great experience for them, but it's a great discovery process for you just to get to know them a little bit better. So if they do come in and wreck whatever it was, bad attitude, ulterior motive, whatever, you can minimize, you know, the fallout from that. You know, you've heard that saying before, be slow to hire and quick to fire, meaning before you pull the trigger, it's easier to move forwards than backwards. So the worst thing than not having a leader to fill a position is that you filled it wrongly, and now you've got to remove them and then refill it. That's even worse. So you're better off to be patient, do your due diligence. If you feel a check in your spirit, try and discover why is that. Is it not just the right, okay, there's some attitudes here that we need to deal with, or it's just not the right timing, or this person just doesn't need to be a part. Like, give yourself time to process what you're sensing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. Be slow to hire, quick to fire. On the quick to fire piece, just I translate that into ministry is when there are concerns that come to your attention, do not be slow to discover what that is and to deal with it. So you've got to be willing to confront those things early on. So even if it's in the process of building your team, if there are certain things that are like, I don't know, go there. Ask about it. Talk about it, because if you ignore it, if you take the path of least resistance and you don't lead in that moment, at some point that root becomes fruit, and now it's going to have more of an impact. So now you're removing somebody from a place of ministry that relationships have connected to. So now the kids in the small group are ticked off at you because you're removing their small group leader. So that you don't want to be in that position. So be slow on the front end. Move slowly, cautiously through that. When and how often depends on the role that you're filling.
That's awesome. Don't overlook the one thing you said on there is make sure they're background checked. I can't tell you how important that is. If your leaders, like your pastors, haven't already told you that, I've talked with several of our youth pastors or youth leaders who are just beginning as the point person. Hey, so should I background check people? Answer is yes. If they're going to be involved with your youth by any standard, you must background check them. I can't stress that enough. And if you need any help with that, please call me, because we can get you the way we do our background checks, even with our interns at camp, or the way we would basically approve leaders. Please contact me. We want to help you and be a resource to you that way. One of the other questions, Scotty, I want to hit here is, when is the best time to schedule monthly trainings? You mentioned in this chapter that a monthly training is necessary in order to keep the vision in front of people, keep them on mission. And so what does that look like from finding the best timing? You know, maybe you can share from your experience of when you found maybe some fail moments of what, man, this thought would be a cool time, really wasn't. What have you found to be in the different areas you've seen to be like the best monthly training, like for a time?
Well, I think that you've got to identify the purpose of your monthly training. So is it like equipping them with here's how to minister to students? Is it more informational meeting on I just need to communicate some calendar events? So is it training? Is it information? Is it encouragement? Is it more fellowship? We need to get together to hang out and build relationship, because if it's relationship that you're after and you're wanting to build unity, strengthen relationships, man, then a Friday night, Saturday night cookout type setting once a month, that's awesome. Go for that. Very relational over food. It'll be a lot of fun. If it's more informational, it's not necessarily training, but just a shot in the arm, then they're already coming on a Wednesday, so you could do something before service Wednesday night just to say, hey, wanted to go over these couple of things that are coming up over the next few weeks or whatever like that. But you wouldn't want to have your training time on Wednesday night just before service, because people are getting there 30 minutes before, whatever your time would be. Your mind is on the message. You all have responsibilities. That's not the time for you to be trying to cover major ground from a training standpoint. So you got to identify what's the purpose of the meeting. What are you really looking to take away from that? Another thing would be look at the demographic of your leadership team. Is it primarily college students? Is it primarily parents? Do you have young families, you know, parents with kids, young kids who are in there? Like, you got to be sensitive to the dynamic of your schedule, of their schedules. If you have a conglomeration of all of those things, then it's going to be tough to find a time that works perfectly for everyone. But I would again point back to, when's a natural gathering time already happening? They all are driving to the church on Sunday already. So does your church have multiple services? Is it acceptable at your church that you would encourage your leadership team to go to first service, but then second service once a month is going to be leadership training? If you're able to do that, that would be my biggest recommendation, a time that they're already there, they're already a part. If you only have one service, or if your leadership says, you know what, we don't want teaching or classes like that going on because it will compete with something else, so you can't do it during the service, then once a month, if you had a lunch after services, so you're able to feed them, everybody again was already there, you're going to take care of their lunch, that's a good time for a win. So just think about your demographic and think about your purpose for the meeting, and that will help you navigate towards what would be best for your situation.
It's good. Thank you for that. You know, the last question, Scotty, we'll hit quickly, but if you are leading too hard, so it's kind of a two-part question. How can you do working them too hard, and then what do you do to keep them refreshed?
I think the first thing I would say, Griffin, is that you need to try and cultivate a culture of honest communication. I don't think that you as the leader need to carry 100% of the burden of trying to figure out when a volunteer is tired. Because if you do that, you're going to be walking on eggshells thinking, I'm pushing too hard or I'm not pushing enough. So I'd say create a culture of just honest and open communication. As a part of that, let's get practical for a second. One would be a clearly defined expectation of the time commitment and the end result, and agreed upon effort. So they know and you know what you're both getting into and what you're looking towards. So that way they weren't guilted into it. You didn't start adding stuff to their responsibilities after they made the commitment, and so now it just continues to morph. So this requires clear communication. So what's the expectation of time commitment and then the end result? And then just this invitation on your part that says, hey, listen, you're doing a great job. I feel like you're starting to help out in other areas, or I feel like you're contributing more than I even anticipated, which I'm grateful for and I'm thankful for, but here's what I don't know. What is your capacity? I don't want to put a lid on you Because, man, I'd love to have you here 8 days a week. I'd love for you to lead 4 classes, but I'm more concerned with your personal health and you winning here in the ministry for the long term. So I want you to stay this marathon, not just finish this sprint. I'm not going to be able to discern as easily as you are where your lid is. So what I'm asking is, keep me informed, keep me updated. And then the third piece that I would say is, don't now wait for them to always initiate that. You need to come back to that conversation. So maybe on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, depending on their involvement, just for you to say, hey, how are things going? Are you enjoying your role here? Do you feel like you could handle more responsibility? Do you feel like we've loaded you up too much? So in that sense, it's a shared ownership. You don't carry the complete burden of it, but as a leader, I do think it'd be unrealistic to think that everybody's just going to naturally come and tell you, hey, here's where I am today, here's how I'm feeling. So you've got to make that as a part of your goal, that I care more about them as a person than as a worker. I care more about their family than their role here. So if that's healthy, this will be healthy. All of this stuff works together. So because of that, I don't have the luxury of waiting for them to tell me if they're ever hitting a place of dysfunction or lack of health. I've got to be initiated. Talk to me about that. Man, when I hear that, that sounds like you're carrying a lot, bro. Are you sure about that? Oh, yeah, totally got it. Well, as your pastor, let me speak into that. Man, I think you're carrying an awful lot. I would encourage you to take that before the Lord and to prioritize, and maybe for a season, try not to do all 10. Let's just do 8 of those things right now. That's called leadership. That's your role as a pastor. So it's that balance of them owning their own health, but you leading them in a way to where they can speak honestly, and you can speak into it if you see something that's not healthy.
That's good. We have one of the quotes, again, it applies to this, is don't give leaders responsibility without resourcing them with the tools to get it done. And so I think that's just a good philosophy in there too. Like, don't set your leaders up to fail. Make sure they have the necessary tools to get at the job that you've required of them or you've asked of them. I think, many times we feel unqualified as leaders in that. But if you're, like you said, have the clear communication, you're seeking to understand them, you're seeking to be in their life, very actively involved. You've got to keep a good pulse on that. But know that, we're in this for the long haul. Many times it's easy to get tunnel vision and think, man, well, it's all about this all-nighter. It's all about this. Well, man, you're gonna burn everyone out if you're requiring everyone to do these all-nighters. That seemed like a great idea. The month of May, all-nighter once a month, or no, once a week, doing that. It's like maybe just keep a good pulse on that. I think if you're gonna do something like an all-nighter, or you're gonna do something that requires a lot of energy, even camp, really be intentional if you're taking those leaders there on what that looks like post or pre. Are you setting them up with the right? Are you setting them up to fail, or are you setting them up to win? And so I think there's good principles, and then those are things you can teach on. You say, what do I teach on these, ministry team training? If we're going to do these once a month, what do I teach on? Well, teach about margin, teach about prioritizing, and practical things that they can take away and know that you can set them up with the right tools to be successful. So Scotty, thank you so much. And it's crazy to think this is the conclusion of this. The good news is we've got ways to follow you on Twitter, and you're on Instagram, I believe, right?
I am.
You got to keep up your Instagram.
Yeah, I need to do better.
We got to let a fire under that, I guess. So he's on Twitter, on Facebook, on all those as well. So keep following. If you guys read this book, I did it last night. I put a review on Amazon on there. Make sure you guys find ways to just tell Scotty how much you appreciate him.
Thank you.
And Scotty, I said we're gonna have to just do our own little video talks once a month now, just to keep in touch and just keep learning from your leadership. But honestly, I feel blessed to be able to share what you are as a leader to me, is your vulnerability, being transparent, and being invested in my life. But to see how you've invested in our youth pastors across the state, I can't tell you how grateful I am. And I know that just it's really calibrated us together, and understanding that, man, we can hit these different essential topics. But I just appreciate your heart. And I want to thank you for all that you've invested into us, and especially as we get into this camp season here. We have youth pastors across the state who are gearing up for it. We have 6 camps. It's going to be incredible. But Scotty, I know he holds a very rigorous travel schedule, and he's across. So just be keeping Scotty in prayer, his family, just their health and strength as well. But I appreciate you investing in us, and just these 30-minute chats once a month has been more than you know, and I so appreciate you for that. But any last words you want to say to Arizona youth pastors?
Hey, it's just been a blast. Thanks, Griffin, for the opportunity. Thanks, guys, for just letting me be a part of this journey with you, and hopefully something along the way has encouraged you. But I know that God is probably going to use you to encourage others even in your discussion there together, because we're all in this thing together. So none of us have it figured out. Just keep a teachable spirit, keep learning, keep growing, and more than anything, just remain in Him. That's how you bear fruit. Stay in Him. Stay plugged into Jesus, and let Him work in you and through you, even through your weaknesses. But it's been fun to be a part of it. I've had a blast. Thanks for allowing me to stay a part or to be a part. Now let's stay connected, and we'll just keep building our friendships. But love you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Well, please, we'll pray here just to close it out. I'll close this in prayer. But if you can find time today in your sections, or when you watch this, if you're watching individually online or you're together with your group, would you please just say a prayer for Scotty, and just our blessing over him, and also be praying with us. We're doing our month of prayer challenge across the state. We've been posting on our Instagram and social media the daily pursuit and prayer, but be praying with us for God to move at camps. We're really believing that these 6 camps, we're going to see moments of encounter where we're looking at the end in mind. These students who are to be ministers, they're called to God to vocational ministry and other areas that we haven't even thought of. I believe there are new ways of doing church that God has yet to reveal. Church planters, missionaries, evangelists, teachers. I really believe in the office of a minister. But at the same time, I also know that God has gifted this generation in the arts. He's gifted this generation in their brilliant minds, their heart for compassion in the medical field, their heart for God, and just service to their community and politics. I believe that God is about to reveal some incredible things, and He's going to honor our prayers this summer. And so please be praying with us. Make it a point to pray together and just believe God for the best summer we've ever experienced. And I don't say that lightly, but I really believe God's a God of glory to glory, and so we believe the best is yet to come. And this year is going to be the best yet. So thank you so much, Arizona youth pastors and leaders. We love you guys, and we pray for you daily. My wife and I, Bethany, consider it an honor to serve you, and we continue to look for brighter days ahead. So let me pray, and we'll conclude this conversation. Father, you are so good. God, we thank you that each day, Lord, we can come to you. Lord, your mercies are new every morning. God, we thank you that we can look to you, God, and we can spend time in your presence, Lord, knowing that we can know you. God, that we can have a relationship with you. God, what an incredible honor it is we can pursue. And Lord, today I pray that as we have discussed these things, God, as we've talked together with Scotty, Lord, I pray that you would bless him, bless his family. Lord, we thank you that you are healing. God, you are bringing strength. God, you're sustaining them, Lord, for the ministry you've called them to. And so, Lord, we thank you for the investment they've made here in Arizona. God, as they go about their day and into their year and their travel schedule, God, I pray that you would go before them. God, we thank you for greater anointing upon their ministry as they, as a family, God, they pursue you and the call on their life. God, I pray for our youth pastors across the state today as they're meeting together, God, or maybe they're viewing online separately today. I pray that your presence would be with them. And Lord, may we know you, God. God, I was reading today in your word, God, that in Luke 13, God, there's a passage talking about those who would eat and drink in your presence, and Lord, and they wouldn't know you. God, I pray that, God, when we are in your presence, Lord, may we truly know you. God, may it be you that we're seeking, not just your presence, but Lord, may we seek your face, Jesus. May we know you, God. And Lord, what an incredible honor that, Jesus, you tore that veil, God, that we can enter into the Holy of Holies, God, that we are the temple. And so, God, I pray that we would know you to a deeper level, God, that we'd abide in, Lord, that we'd know you daily. And Lord, let us minister out of that, God. I pray that there be greater ministry in our churches, greater ministry in the volunteer leaders that have yet to be recruited, those who have yet to find the vision. Lord, I pray that, God, you know those names. God, you know who you've called for this. And so, God, I just thank you that, God, we can pray to the Lord of the harvest that you would send workers. And so, God, I just pray that you would send workers all across Arizona, that you'd raise up the necessary people, God, to accomplish this mission. God, we consider it an honor. We love you so much. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Love you guys. Scotty, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll be in touch.
God bless. Bye-bye.